Albuerque, urging people to get out to the polls and vote early, as has been the message of his campaign for the last few weeks. Let's listen in.
Finding it impossible to get loans, which means they can't buy new equipment or hire new workers or even make payroll for the workers they have. We've lost more than 750,000 jobs this year. Wages are lower than they've been in a decade at a time when the costs of health care and college have never been higher. It's getting harder and harder to make the mortgage or fill up your gas tank or even just keep electricity on at the end of the month. At this rate, the question isn't just, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? The question is, are you better off than you were 4 weeks ago? So what we need right now is a real debate about how to fix our economy and help middle-class families. But that's not what we're getting from the other side. You know, a couple of weeks ago, my opponents said that if we keep talking about the economy, we're going to lose. That's what they said. So they said they'd be focusing instead on attacking me. Now that's one promise, that's one campaign promise that they've kept. Senator McCain has been throwing everything he's got at us, everything, hoping something will stick. He's even called me a socialist for suggesting that instead of giving tax cuts to corporations and the wealthy, we should give tax cuts to the middle class. The other day, he took it to a whole new level. He said that I was like, get this, George W. Bush. You can't make this stuff up. In what may be the strangest twist of a strange election season, Senator McCain said that I would somehow continue the Bush economic policies, even though I've opposed them ever since I've been in the United States Senate and ever since I was running for the United States Senate. John McCain suggested that he would be the one to change George Bush's policies. He actually denounced President Bush for letting things get completely out of hand. John McCain has been really angry about George Bush's economic policies, except he adopted all of them. Except during the primaries when he said we'd made great progress economically under George Bush. Or just last month when he said that the fundamentals of our economy are strong under George Bush. In fact, John McCain is so mad at George Bush, so opposed to George Bush's policies, that he voted with him 90% of the time for the last 8 years. That's right, John McCain really decided to stick it to George Bush 10% of the time. Well, let's be clear. John McCain attacking George Bush for his out-of-hand economic policies is like Dick Cheney attacking George Bush for his go-it-alone foreign policy. It's like Robin getting mad at Batman. John McCain hasn't been a maverick, he's been a sidekick when it comes to George Bush's economic policy. Fortunately, George Bush doesn't seem to be at all offended because yesterday he cast his vote early for Senator John McCain. And that's no surprise because when it comes to the policies that matter to middle-class families, there's not an inch of daylight between George Bush and John McCain. Just like George Bush, John McCain wants to keep giving tax breaks to oil companies and CEOs and companies that ship our jobs overseas. It's the same failed Wall Street first, Main Street last economic policies, and we're going to change it. Like George Bush, John McCain wants to tax your health care benefits that you get from your employer for the very first time in history and let insurance companies keep discriminating against people who need health care the most. That's the same failed insurance company first, your family last health care policy that we're going to change. Like George Bush, John McCain wants to privatize part of your Social Security. Leave it to the whims of the marketplace. Like George Bush, John McCain ignored this housing crisis until it was too late. Then he proposed a $300 billion bailout for Wall Street banks that hardly does anything to keep people like you staying in their homes. Just like George Bush, John McCain wants less government regulation of business. He said this again yesterday. The 21st time that he's called for less regulation just this year. Now, none of us want to see unnecessary burdens on business, but after what we've seen on Wall Street, isn't it obvious by now that we need some common sense rules of the road to protect consumers and our economy? I think we've had enough of Bush-McCain economics. I can take 10 more days of John McCain's attacks, but you can't take 4 more years of Bush-McCain economics. That's why I'm running for president of the United States of America.
Okay, Barack Obama in Albuerque, New Mexico, at the University of New Mexico, talking about the economy, also talking about health care, and obviously criticizing his opponents there, John McCain and Sarah Palin.